ladies and gentlemen, Bill Cullen.
Hi, thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. You're very kind. As I've mentioned before, Garry is taking a well-deserved vacation. I'm doing my best to fill in for him, and we have a real believe it or not coming up for you. First, we have a man who claims not only to have seen a flying saucer, but get this, to have entered the space vehicle and had contact with extraterrestrial beings. It's a wild story, and we're going to find out more about it after I summon our wild panel out here on stage. Panel, come on out on stage.
Nipsey Russell. Peggy Carlisle. Orson Bean. And Peggy Cass.
And there they are, the big improvements since I sat there. All right, I will begin, if I may, by taking a little survey. You can raise your hands or sing out whatever you want to do. How many of you really believe there is life on other planets?
What kind of life?
Mushrooms.
Mushroom, no. Intelligent life.
Of course there are.
Okay, we got 1-4. Nipsey, you too.
Today at noon, we got a message from the moon. It came through the air loud and clear.
Yeah.
So never mind the missiles and the astronauts. Send some booze and some broads up here.
There's money to be made. Do any of you believe in flying saucers as something aside from unidentifiable objects?
Highly unlikely.
I don't.
Okay, one last question. How many believe there is a real Mark Goodson or Bill Todman?
I do.
You don't?
No.
Okay, we'll be sitting in for somebody next week right there. Right now, let us meet a man who claims to have had contact with beings from outer space.
Number 1, what is your name, please?
My name is Charles Hickson.
Number 2.
My name is Charles Hickson.
Number 3.
My name is Charles Hickson.
Okay, if you listen carefully to Charles Hickson's unidentified flying story. I, Charles Hickson, underwent an utterly mind-boggling experience on October 11th, 1973, while fishing with a young friend. I noticed a bright blue flashing object in the sky. It hovered above us, then landed nearby, and one end of the craft opened up, and to my astonishment, 3 light gray creatures appeared. They were about 5 feet tall, with wrinkled skin, pointed ears, holes below their noses, and had crab-like claws for hands. Before I knew it, 2 of them had me by each arm, lifted me off the ground and into their space vehicle. Meanwhile, my friend passed out. On board the craft, I was examined for 15 or 20 minutes by what appeared to be a large, menacing eye. The creatures then removed me from the saucer and then sort of floated my friend and me back to where we'd been fishing. Later, in an effort to substantiate my report of what happened, I submitted to hypnosis and underwent a lie detector test. My story remained unshakable. I think you'll find that the same will be true after my questioning from the To Tell the Truth panel. Signed, Charles Hickson. So keeping in mind that all 3 of the gentlemen across from us claim to be Charles Hickson, who has had actual contact with beings from beyond the solar system, let's start the questioning with Orson Bean.
Thank you, Zog. Number 1, after the beings floated you back to where you'd been fishing, did you catch anything?
Not very much.
No. Number 2, a lie detector test successfully passed simply indicates that you believe what you're saying, right? Not necessarily what you're saying is true. Isn't that correct? I meant to say number 3. Is that right?
As far as I'm concerned, it's true.
Yeah, but that's what a polygraph test proves, is that you believe you're telling the truth. Not that you are, in fact, telling the truth, but that you believe yourself to be telling the truth, correct?
I suppose so, yeah.
Yeah, all right. Number 3, who is Godzilla? Godzilla? Don't know? Well, it's an obscure... number 1, the little gray people with the claw-like hands, did they have thumbs?
No, not thumbs.
Well, did they have something? How could they pick anything up if they... Or you mean claws like lobsters?
They had
I'm sorry, the buzzer hit there. I was anxious to hear the answer. Peggy.
Thank you. Now, number 2, this large, menacing eye that, you know, interrogated, that stared at you on the inside of the plane. Was there any body attached to that eye, or was it just an eye?
No, it was just an eye.
Like a great big fried egg, sort of, right? Nothing to it but that.
It looked like a real eye. It was...
Well, now, was it an eye that was projected on a screen, or could you go pluck an eyelash out of it? No, I mean, was it a real eye? A true, substantial eye?
It looked like an eye. It looked like a real eye,
okay.
Except it was larger.
Number 3, has this experience changed your life at all?
Yes, ma'am, sure has.
In what way?
It's amazing. Just so many calls and letters and news people, things of this nature.
Thank you. Number 1, where did this happen? In what state?
Mississippi.
And number 2, where did your experience happen?
In Mississippi.
Oh, it all happened in Mississippi. Number 3, what was the color of the interior of the saucer?
Well, there you are. Nipsey, you were one of those who said you believed in intelligent life somewhere else. What would you like to ask?
Number 3, what were you drinking that night? I asked that because you said friend passed out. Was it from shock or from something?
I kind of wished I'd have passed out with him, to tell you the truth.
Number 2, was there any language communication in this whole examination of you? Did you say anything to them, or did they say anything to you?
No, I yelled, and there was a buzzing. There was kind of a buzzing sound.
I see. Number 1, what kind of force was exerted on you? Did you have the power to resist or to restrain yourself, or was you sort of hypnotized?
I didn't have any power to resist, no.
I see. When they floated you back, what did they float you back in or on?
They themselves had hold of me.
But, I mean, what kept you in suspension?
I don't know.
I see. Number 3, can you tell me, when you're under hypnosis and you answered these questions, were you aware that you were being asked these questions? Were you completely out of contact with your interviewer?
No, I was aware that I was answering the questions.
So what...
All right, Kitty, you look skeptical, but please go on.
Number 1, it says here that they examined you for 15 or 20 minutes. Does that mean they took off your clothes and examined your body, or did they ask you questions?
No, they didn't ask me questions, or they didn't remove my clothes. They examined me with my clothes on.
I see, but they went over you with their claws and they looked. Did they touch you?
The only place that they touched me was on my arms, where they had hold of me.
I see. And number 2, were you aware of a language passing between you?
No, there was no language that I was aware of. I think they were robots, really.
Oh, I see. Robots in what sense? You mean directed from some other place? Moving by electricity or what?
I would think so. I mean, the buzzing could have been communication to the robots.
I see. Number 3, was there some kind of a follow-up to this story? Did you take anything away with you, or was something found, or?
No, nothing.
Nothing at all.
Okay, and that's all we have time for as far as our questions are concerned. It's time to vote. So, panel, if you mark your ballots, please, for either number 1, number 2, or number 3. $5 for each wrong vote, and if the entire panel votes incorrectly, $500. And, okay, all marked. Orson, you ran out of ink there.
I just put ink all over my...
Orson voted on his hand.
Yeah, I voted on my hand. I can get back into the dance now anyway. Well, I don't think number 2 has ever been even close to Mississippi and gotten away alive. I voted for number 1 because I think he looks like the kind of a man who has lived through an experience like this and been sobered by it somehow, as I have.
And you have a flying saucer there. Peggy?
Well, I was going to vote for number 1, but you know something? Number 2 never smiled or anything. I mean, I think he is a true believer, so I voted for him.
A vote for the true believer. What do you do, Nipsey?
Well, I've been picked up by creatures of that description, but they were just ugly girls. So... I voted for number 3 on a hunch.
Just one big eye there in the rumble seat examining you. Kitty, what do you say?
There's no such thing as an ugly girl.
That's right.
That's beautiful.
I voted for number 1. He looks like the kind of a gentleman that this conceivably did happen to. And
would you like to go on with that, Kitty?
How do you mean that?
Yeah.
well, because it's like somebody said, he looks very sobered by the experience.
All right.
That's you.
We have 2 votes for number 1, and we have 1 vote for number 2 and 1 vote for number 3. So they're in. Will the real Charles Hickson please stand up? Mr. Hickson, I would like to talk to you in just a moment, but first let us find out who your imposters are. Number two, what is your name, sir, and what do you do?
My name is James Mopan. I'm a supervisor with the Department of Social Services in Brooklyn, New York.
And according to Kitty, you look like you've had quite an experience, number two. Number three, who are you, sir?
My name is Larry Addison. I'm with Swift Textiles here in New York.
Mr. Hickson, I imagine in addition, sir, to the polygraph test and scientific examinations, you've been questioned extensively too, have you not?
Yes, that's correct.
Has anybody shown any serious doubts, anybody of authority, about your story and that what you tell them?
Not to my knowledge.
Were you communicated with? According to what you tell us, nothing was said to you, is that correct?
That's correct.
Did you get any feeling from these other creatures or beings, whatever they were, that they were perhaps trying to communicate with you?
No, I don't think they were trying to communicate with me.
Do you think they'll be back, Mr. Hickson?
Oh.
Seriously?
Well, I mean, in my opinion, I think so.
Do you have any idea where they're going to come this time?
I have no idea.
They're going to come looking for him. They liked him.
Yeah.
Tell him I don't believe
I just like to keep Mr. Hickson around, and when they're on their way, sell tickets to the whole event. In any event, it was an interesting story. I do not disbelieve it because I do believe there is life, as some of us do, in other places. And thank you in any event, Charles Hickson and Imposters, for being with us on To Tell the Truth. Now let's meet a lady who lived with primitive Indians in the jungles of Peru.
Number 1, what is your name, please?
My name is Janet Siskind.
Number 2.
My name is Janet Siskind.
Number 3.
My name is Janet Siskind.
And here are Janet Siskind's Peruvian paragraphs. I, Janet Siskind, lived for many months in the jungles of Peru. As an anthropologist, I was there to study and record the ways of the Sharanawa Indians. I found my way into their society and shared their lives. The Sharanawa have a simple and primitive society. However, as individuals, they are sophisticated and complex. They wear Western clothes, but paint their faces. They trade with the outside world, but don't consider themselves citizens of Peru. The men are hunters. They prefer to eat deer or tapir, but will settle for a monkey or wild bird. The women never hunt. They farm and collect palm nuts, edible fungi, and wild fruits. Naturally, I was not allowed to go hunting, but the men did permit me to partake of a native hallucinogenic drug, usually forbidden to women. Signed, Janet Siskind. Okay, we will find out more about Janet Siskind's interesting story. We will turn the questioning over to Nipsey Russell.
Number 3, what do those Indians trade? You said they trade with the outside world.
Yes, they trade skins.
Skins from their hunting?
Yes, they do.
Number 2, what kinds of weapons do they use for hunting?
They use bows and arrows, shotguns.
Shotguns?
Shotguns.
Number 1, do they eat these meats raw or do they prepare them in cooking utensils? 1.
No, they cook the meat in cooking pots.
Number 2, can you tell me about that hallucinogenic drug, what it does?
Well, it reacts the way LSD is supposed to react.
What do they use it for?
They use it to get a high, and they say they use it primarily to cure and to learn to know.
Number 3, are there groups like tribes or with a chief, or how is their society formed?
There are people who have responsibility and authority in the tribe, but you wouldn't call them a chief.
I see. Number 1.
Kitty?
Thank you. Number 1, they can't be all that primitive. They looked as though they had rather nice dresses on. The children were nicely dressed. Where do they get the Western clothes from?
They trade the skins for cloth, and the women make their clothes from that cloth.
So they're not all that primitive then.
Well, primitive really only refers to a rather small society which has not very advanced technology.
I see. Number 3, when you stayed with them, where did you live? Were you just all by yourself, or did you go out with an exploring party?
I was all by myself, and I lived in a hut that was vacated by someone in the village who had built a new hut.
Number 2, how far were you from the largest town, and what was it called?
The largest town is Esperanza.
Number 1, do you agree that they use shotguns for hunting?
Yes, I agree with that.
Well, what did you learn from this tribe that doesn't seem to be...
All right, Orson.
Number
you've
3,
traveled a bit.
you were there for a number of months alone.
That's right.
Did you ever go out? I mean, anyone ever asked you to go dancing or anything? What, did you partake in the social life, number 3, to euphemize my...
Yes, I did.
Yeah? In what way, number 3?
I would talk with them over dinner,
Yeah.
and I also partook of the drug, which was a social activity.
Yeah, that's swell. Mercy.
Not so primitive.
Number 1, what is a shaman? Am I pronouncing it correctly? What is a shaman?
A shaman is a witch doctor.
Yeah, do they... That's... Who was the famous Yaqui who was a shaman? Yaqui Indian. Does that mean anything to you?
Oh, I think you mean Carlos Castaneda's
Yeah,
wife.
Don Juan.
Don
Number
Juan.
2, do you feel that these people are happier than we in America are?
Yes, I do.
Why?
Now, that's an interesting answer that I wish I would have heard. You have probably been there, Peggy. You've been everywhere.
No, not in the jungle. Number 1, are these Indians in the Amazon basin?
Yes, they are.
And near the border of what country? I mean, what other country other than Peru?
They're near the border with Brazil.
Thank you. Are you, number 1, are you an anthropologist?
Yes, I'm an anthropologist.
Who is Mr. Mujica Gallo?
I've never heard the name.
Thank you. Number 2, who was the first conquistador that invaded Peru? You know, and went all the way to Cusco. Number 2?
You've got me on that.
Okay, number 3, how did you pay your way with these people? I mean, why should they take you in and feed you and let you live in an empty hut? I mean, what did you contribute to their society? You've got to be able to pay your way, right?
Well, I had cigarettes, and I had canned goods, which I traded for food with them.
Well, now, number 3, did they speak Spanish? Or did they speak their own Indian language?
They had their own language, but they spoke a little Spanish.
Well, how did you learn their... Oh.
Okay, that's about all the information you are going to get at this point. It's time to vote. So if you care to all mark your ballots, please, for number 1, number 2, or number 3. $50 as usual for each wrong vote, and if the entire panel votes incorrectly, $500 for the group. Okay, Nipsey, you were first to question. How about your vote?
I'll go with number 1 because she had a good deal of information, not that the others didn't, but she said she was an anthropologist, and I was just trying to guess at what level of one's life one would be an anthropologist.
Okay. Kitty?
I don't think I got enough information really to find out what was the whole purpose of this. But I think number 1, well, she knew about that book that you knew about, and
I knew about that.
well, that doesn't mean she didn't know about it too. Now the panel's going to fight.
If there's violence here, I didn't start it.
So you voted for...
Number 1.
And no votes for you, Peggy. Orson?
I voted for number 1 as well. They were all good, and it could have been any of them. But somebody's casting a spell on my card.
Shaping up here. All right, Peggy.
Oh. Well, the only thing, I would have voted for number 1, but she didn't know about Mujica Gallo, and that's the most famous, pre-Columbian gold museum in the whole wide world, which is, in Peru. Number 2 didn't even know it was Pizarro that invaded Peru. Now, number 3, I didn't think she knew so much, but she didn't give me any wrong answers, so I voted for her.
Okay, look at that. 3 votes for number 1, none at all for number 2, and 1 for number 3. Before Garry went on his vacation, we discussed this, and he said he didn't think that the panel would ever be completely stumped during this time I was doing the show. I said I thought they would.
Oh,
She'd know Pizarro.
Would the real Janet Siskin please stand up? He was right, you see. Actually, the imposters did a very good job with that. Number 2, suppose you tell us who you are and what you do, please.
I'm Jerry Rittenhouse, and I'm a housewife.
And very good player, to tell the truth, too. Number 3, would you tell us a little bit about yourself?
My name is Barbara Oka, and I'm a radio producer with WBAI.
Uh-huh.
I love that station.
Good. Incidentally, I have not mentioned it. I do not know why, but it's a good point now to say that it is Dr. Janet Siskind, and we are happy to have you with us, Doctor. Where do you actually teach anthropology?
I teach at Rutgers University in Newark.
Now, after this fascinating visit of yours, do you intend to return to visit the tribe of that particular tribe of Indians again?
Probably not. I've been back to that group 3 times, and I intend to work in East Africa next.
But you are going to do much the same thing, just in a different locale with different people, is that right?
Approximately. East Africa, you get really large, extremely large groups, and no one would consider a simple society.
We wish you well. Thank you, Dr. Janet Siskind and Imposters, for being with us on To Tell the Truth. Nipsey and Kitty and Orson and Peggy, I want to thank you because you are wonderful and you make it so interesting. Honestly, I do appreciate it. I think Garry should be ashamed to take the money.
Yeah, but he's a shameful man.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not the least bit ashamed. Send it. So long from To Tell the Truth.
This is Bill Wendell speaking for To Tell the Truth, a Mark Goodson, Bill Todman production.